I'm Jennifer and I work for Feeding Liverpool with Naomi, and I also set up and co-lead Hope Community Garden as a volunteer. So you're going to find out more about me very shortly, but I'm going to now pass you over to my co-leader PJ, who will introduce herself to you all. So PJ?
Hello. Jen is leading on our talk tonight, but I thought I'd just pop in and introduce myself as well. So like Jen, I'm a volunteer with Hope Community Garden. I have another full-time job that I do most of the time, and then this I just do in my spare time. So I started coming along to the garden. Well, I was there a little bit when it very first started, but started coming along every week, sort of, I guess, this time last year, sort of as lockdown started to ease, sort of June last year, I guess. And yeah, ended up co-leading with Jen, which is absolutely fabulous. I'd just done a permaculture design course and I really wanted to start putting some stuff into practice and playing with some ideas. And it was just such a fab space to start doing that in. So yeah, I'll stop there and let Jen talk you through the story of the garden.
Thank you so much, PJ. So Hope Community Garden is on land at St Margaret of Antioch Church, which is on Princes Road in Toxteth. It's an Anglo-Catholic church. It's also an inclusive church, which is really important for the work that we do. I'm a member of the PCC, and I've been attending St Margaret's Church for around 4 years now. So we gather together Fridays 10 till 2, when we run gardening for all sessions through the Mersey Forest, which we've been doing since September 2019. So that was 6 months before the first lockdown was when we started doing that. So we serve the local community, but all are welcome to come and to grow fruit and veg and come and make your own compost and loads more, which I'll go into later on. So this evening, I'll be talking about how and why the garden was set up, how we support people's mental health and well-being, and growing on a shoestring. And then towards the end, I'll also explain a little bit about how we organise. So before I move on, I just want to say I really love this photo. So the lady in the picture is Nina. And she's incredible, and she's with us this evening. So hello, Nina. We're so fortunate to have her with us each week. And she works for the Mersey Forest, and she provides us with the expert gardening and growing knowledge that we very, very much need. So we wouldn't have gotten very far without her and the Mersey Forest support. And I'll talk about that more later on. So in the beginning, I've been interested in food growing for as long as I can remember, but never really had the opportunity to explore it growing up. So from 2018 to 2019, I was supporting a friend with MS, and she has a kitchen garden that her and her wife harvest from daily. She'd asked me to do odd jobs in the garden while I was with her, so bunching garlic for drying. And I just really loved spending time in the garden. And I was so curious to learn more. So I soon came across a free level 1 City and Guilds practical horticulture course offered by Myers Cow, and you're going to hear more about that later. And this was in Anfield. And this was where I learned some basic skills in growing food. I got a qualification, and it's where I met Nina, who was leading the course and working for Myers Cow at the time. So around the same time, I moved to a house overlooking St Margaret's Vicarage Garden. Now the house doesn't have a garden, so I really wanted to use that space to grow things as it wasn't being used at the time. So I asked Father Bob Lewis, who is my priest, if I could use that space. So he actually offered a piece of land that was on the other side of the church. And to say I was disappointed is an understatement. I wanted a really quaint, walled, quiet garden to do my growing in. So I walked around and looked through the iron railings, and I was still disappointed. As you can see in the photo in the center of your screen there, it was overgrown and it was full of litter. It was far too big for me, and it was obviously too much work, and it was far too open. I just wanted a really nice private space. And then in a moment, I just had this sudden realization. I thought that would make a great community garden. And Father Bob thankfully agreed. So not long after that, I got a group of friends together, and they helped me to clear the space of litter and all the brambles that were accumulated around the back. So in the meantime, I spoke with Nina, who also works for the Mersey Forest, and she was able to help us to get a 2-year agreement delivering gardening for all sessions through the Nature for Health programme. The Mersey Forest took a risk with us, and I will be forever grateful. So thank you so much, Claire, and thank you, Nina. At this point, we still didn't have a name. So I spent some time thinking and asked friends to think about it too. And one day I decided to have a cheeky little rummage in the vicarage garage just to see if I could find any bits that I could use for the garden. And as I opened the garage door, there, leaning against the wall opposite, was a sign. It was the sign, and it said Hope Community Garden. Now, you literally couldn't write this, could you? So early September 2019, we ran our first Friday session, and our aims were to transform the space into a workable community garden while also supporting people's mental health and well-being through Mersey Forest's 12-week Nature for Health programme, which is funded by the National Lottery Community Fund. So typically, a participant will complete some forms at the beginning of the programme, including a questionnaire about their health. And at the end of the programme, so after 12 weeks of spending time in the garden, meeting people, connecting with nature, and just getting stuck in, they'll complete the same questionnaire with the hope that the programme has improved their health and well-being. So I was actually a participant myself, and the programme just absolutely benefited my mental health and well-being. I'm much more calmer, and I feel much more resilient. And I really believe that this came through connecting with nature and with others. And I've made deep, lasting friendships through this programme. I can only speak for myself, but I know that others who have taken part have also benefited immensely. The programme changes lives, and it definitely changed mine. So as mentioned, the Gardening for All sessions are funded through National Lottery Community Fund. And in our case, this provides revenue funding, but we don't receive any capital funding. So as a result, this has helped shape our ethos, leading us to grow on a shoestring, so to speak. So we recycle and upcycle used and found materials. We've built compost bins, cold frames, raised beds, a small greenhouse, tables, all using pallets. And one of our cold frames is actually an upside down bed frame. So we've also received donations of tools and horse manure from Park Palace Ponies, which is in the Dingle, so not very far at all. We also encourage our volunteers to bring along their ideas. We've been so blessed to have a lovely chap called John come each week, and he is an extremely talented woodworker, and he's built most of the things that you can see on the screen. And he also trains volunteers in woodwork during our sessions. We have received generous funding from St. Margaret's, and they provide funds through their giving programme. So we've had also some private donations as well. So to date, we've actually spent approximately £300, and we've got approximately £300 available to spend for the rest of the year. So we've used this funding to buy things like seeds, compost, a tarp, equipment, and most recently a water butt and a wheelbarrow, which arrived today, Nina. So you'll be very excited about that, I'm sure. We have a restricted fund in the church accounts, and so we can receive donations and funding through that. So finally, the community garden wouldn't be what it's become without the love and tender care of our volunteers. At the moment, we're asking people to book into our Friday sessions, which we're running from 10 till 12 and 12 till 2. And we have up to 6 on site for each session, but we're hoping to return to some form of a drop-in soon. So people will contact us through our social media platforms, so on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. If we're at capacity, then I'll put them on our waiting list. So we do have a growing waiting list at the moment, and then I'll contact them when a space comes available. So we organise the garden mostly through a private Facebook group, and then on Wednesdays, I will usually post in the group to ask volunteers to book a place. And I'll also text anyone not on Facebook. So if there are spaces available, I'll contact people then on the waiting list. So once someone has attended our Friday session, I'll give them the code to the lock on the gate, and then they'll be able to access the garden whenever they want. So when there are dry periods, for example, you'll all be aware a couple of weeks ago, we went through a very dry period. I'll use the Facebook group to organise a watering schedule. Although Facebook has been very useful for organising, there are some risks that you need to be aware of. So one of our really lovely, enthusiastic volunteers had their account hacked recently, and they lost access to the group and all of her precious photos and the pages that she uses for work. So using Facebook has its vulnerabilities, but seems to be the most useful and accessible way to organise at the moment. But yeah, I just love this page. I love all these people's faces. Being there on a Friday and being around everyone, it's the highlight of my week. And I mentioned John earlier, who's our woodworker. So he's the man in the top left-hand corner. He's such a lovely guy. So thank you, John. I know he's not with us today, but he really deserves our gratitude. So before I finish, I want to tell you all about our sharing table. So it's the photo in the center of your screen. When we harvest food from the garden, and also Nina will sometimes bring her harvested veg as well, because she's an avid grower. We put it on the sharing table, and whoever wants it can take it home. We'd like to develop how we distribute the food that we grow, and we're maybe considering working towards supporting people experiencing food insecurity. We want to just be really generous with what's being given to us. And so that's us. I hope I've been able to give you some practical ideas to take away, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions in the Q&A at the end. So thank you all for listening.